The invitation arrived by mail, cream cardstock, embossed lettering, expensive paper stock. Eleanor Hartwell requests the pleasure of your company at a garden party, Saturday the 15th, 2 o'clock, Thornwood Estate. Thornwood Estate. My property. The 12-acre estate I purchased 3 years ago at auction. Eleanor was my older sister. She lived in the main house with her husband, Douglas, and their 2 teenage daughters. They'd moved in 4 years ago, after she'd called me crying about their rental situation. The landlord is selling. We have 60 days to find something. Everything in our price range is terrible. The girls would have to change schools. Douglas would have a brutal commute. We're desperate. Move into Thornwood, I'd said. It's just sitting empty. I'd bought the estate as an investment. A distressed sale, the former owner's bankruptcy. 12 acres, historic main house, cottage, gardens, pond. It needed work, but it had good bones and incredible potential. I planned to renovate and flip it, but Eleanor needed it. So I let her move in temporarily. Just until we get back on our feet, she'd said. Maybe 6 months. 4 years later, she was still there, hosting garden parties on my 12 acres. I never asked her to leave. Never mentioned rent. I just let her family live there while I continued paying the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs. Eleanor assumed the estate had belonged to our late mother's side of the family somehow. I never corrected her. She'd never asked directly. The invitation specified garden attire. I wore a sundress from Target and sandals, drove my practical sedan through the gates I'd had repaired 2 years ago. The circular drive was full of expensive cars. The gardens looked immaculate. I paid for the landscaper who'd restored them. A catering tent stood on the south lawn. White-clothed tables were arranged under the oak trees I'd had professionally treated. A string quartet played near the fountain I'd had restored. About 40 guests milled around in designer dresses and linen suits. Eleanor stood near the rose garden, holding court. She wore cream silk, pearls at her throat, playing lady of the manor. On my manor. I walked across the lawn. Several guests glanced at me, then away. My Target sundress apparently didn't meet the dress code. Diana, Eleanor said when she saw me. Her smile was tight. You came. You invited me. Yes, well, I thought you'd understand it was more of a courtesy invitation, given the guest list. Douglas appeared beside her, drink in hand. Diana, didn't expect to see you here. It's a garden party. I like gardens. Eleanor laughed, the sound artificial. Of course you do. Though I imagine the gardens you're used to are quite different from Thornwood's. A woman in expensive jewelry joined us. Eleanor, darling, your estate is absolutely stunning. You must have put so much work into it. Oh, it's been a labor of love, Eleanor said. When we acquired the property, it was quite run down, but Douglas and I have dedicated ourselves to restoring it to its former glory. I took a sip of my punch and said nothing. You're so blessed to have a property like this, another woman said. The history, the grounds, it must be worth a fortune. We've been very fortunate, Douglas agreed. Of course, it takes considerable resources to maintain an estate of this caliber. Not everyone can handle that level of responsibility. Eleanor's oldest daughter, Melissa, was showing friends around the garden. This is where we host our summer parties. Mom says we might do my graduation party here next year. It's the perfect venue. The younger daughter, Sophie, was posing for photos by the pond. My house. Read her social media caption. Living my best life. Your house, I thought. Built in 1904. Purchased by me in 2021 for $850,000 at auction. Diana, Eleanor said suddenly, her voice loud enough to carry. Could we speak privately for a moment? She walked toward the cottage away from the guests. I followed. Once we were out of earshot, she turned. You need to leave. I just arrived. I know, and I'm asking you to go. This is an important event for me. Douglas's business associates are here, the girls' friends' parents, people we're trying to make connections with. And you're not fitting in. Your dress, your car, you're making people uncomfortable. Because I'm dressed casually? Because you look, she paused. You look like you don't belong here. This is a certain level of society, Diana. There are expectations. You're not meeting them. So you want me to leave your garden party. I want you to understand that some events are for people of a certain standing. You work as a bookkeeper. You drive a Honda. You live in a small apartment. These people own businesses, sit on boards, vacation in Europe. They don't need to be confronted with someone struggling. Someone struggling. I'm not trying to be cruel, but yes, you're the struggling sister. That's just reality. And at an event like this, where we're cultivating relationships and maintaining our position, your presence is awkward. I looked back at the party, at the guests drinking champagne on my lawn, eating catered food under my oak trees, admiring gardens restored with my money. I see. I knew you'd understand. Eleanor's relief was palpable. You're very practical. That's one of your good qualities. You understand your limitations. Douglas was walking toward us, 2 other men with him. Eleanor, he called, bring Diana back. Charles wants to meet everyone. We returned to the main party. Charles was older, distinguished, clearly wealthy. Charles, this is Diana, my sister. Diana, Charles owns the investment firm downtown. Charles shook my hand absently. Pleasure. Eleanor, Douglas, you've done remarkable things with Thornwood. I was just telling Douglas we should talk about that development opportunity. Property this size in this location could be very valuable if subdivided correctly. Oh, we never subdivide, Eleanor said quickly. Thornwood is our family home, our legacy. Everything has a price, Charles said, smiling. I'd be happy to discuss options. You could make substantial money. We'll certainly consider it, Douglas said. They were discussing subdividing my property, selling my land. Eleanor pulled Douglas aside. We should actually think about this. Melissa needs college money, Sophie in 2 years. We've been struggling with the mortgage. We don't have a mortgage, I said quietly. Eleanor turned. What? You said you've been struggling with the mortgage, but there is no mortgage. The property is owned outright. What are you talking about? The quartet had stopped playing. Guests were watching us now. Thornwood Estate, 12 acres. Main house, cottage, grounds. Purchased August 2021 at auction. No mortgage, no debt. Owned outright. Douglas frowned. Eleanor, what is she talking about? I have no idea. Diana, you're confused. I'd brought my bag with me. Inside was the envelope I prepared that morning. I pulled it out and placed it on the nearest table. Eleanor stared at it. What's this? Open it. Diana, I don't have time for your games. Open it. She picked up the envelope, her fingers shaking slightly. Douglas moved beside her. The guests had gathered closer, sensing drama. Eleanor pulled up the papers. The first was a property deed. Thornwood Estate, she read aloud. 12.3 acres. Purchased August 15, 2021. Owner, Diana Mitchell. The silence was absolute. That's wrong, Eleanor said. This is a family property, Mom's side. Mom's side never owned property in this county. I bought Thornwood at a bankruptcy auction 3 years ago for $850,000. You called me crying about your rental situation. I let you move in temporarily. Douglas grabbed the papers. This is fake. Diana couldn't afford. I'm a CA who owns an accounting firm. I have 17 business clients and manage portfolios totaling $30 million. I bought Thornwood as an investment property. But you drive a Honda, Eleanor whispered. You wear cheap clothes. I drive a reliable car and wear practical clothes. That doesn't mean I'm poor. It means I don't need to perform wealth. The second paper in the envelope was a formal notice. Douglas read it aloud, his voice hollow. Notice to vacate. Eleanor and Douglas Hartwell are hereby notified that their occupancy of Thornwood Estate is terminated. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Signed, Diana Mitchell, property owner. 30 days? Eleanor's voice cracked. You're evicting us? You just asked me to leave because poor people aren't welcome at your garden party. I'm simply extending the same courtesy. Poor people aren't welcome at my estate either. We're not poor. According to you, I am. You said I'm the struggling sister, that I don't fit in, that my presence is awkward at events of a certain level. So I'm maintaining standards. This is my property. You're living here rent-free while claiming it as yours. You're not meeting expectations. Melissa was crying. Sophie's face was bright red. The guests stood frozen, drinks in hand. You can't do this, Douglas said. We have rights. We've been living here for years. 4 years. Without a lease. Without paying rent. At my generosity. Which you repay by hosting parties where you pretend to own my property and asking me to leave because I embarrass you. Charles, the investor, was studying the deed. This is legitimate. Properly recorded. She does own it. Diana, please, Eleanor said. We can talk about this. I'm sorry about what I said. I didn't mean. You meant it. You believe I'm beneath you. You believe I don't belong among your important friends. You've been teaching your daughters the same thing. Sophie posts photos captioned "My house." Melissa talks about hosting her graduation here. They think they own Thornwood because you've told them they do. We'll pay rent, Douglas said desperately. Back rent. Whatever you want. 4 years of fair market rent for a 12-acre estate with a 6-bedroom house? That would be approximately $12,000 per month. 48 months. $576,000. Plus property taxes, insurance, and maintenance I've covered. Call it $700,000 total. His face went gray. Or, I continued, you can vacate in 30 days as requested. I'll eat the costs as the price of learning who my family really is. Eleanor was crying now. Real tears, mascara running. Where will we go? The girls' school, Douglas's work, our friends. Your friends who just watched you humiliate your sister. Those friends? I looked at the gathered guests. How many of you nodded when Eleanor said poor people aren't welcome here? Show of hands? No one moved. That's what I thought. You all agreed with her. Agreed that someone like me doesn't belong at Thornwood. Well, congratulations. You're right. I don't belong at your garden party because this is my estate and none of you are welcome here anymore. It turned to Eleanor. You have 30 days. The cottage is available for 2 weeks if you need staging time. After that, I'm changing all the locks and alarm codes. Any belongings left will be considered abandoned. Diana, please. You said I understand my limitations. You were right. My limitation is that I can't keep supporting people who think I'm an embarrassment, who use my property while looking down on me, who teach their children that wealth is measured in designer clothes and expensive cars rather than actual assets. I pulled out one more paper from the envelope. This is the expense breakdown, the monthly cost of maintaining Thornwood. Property taxes, insurance, utilities for a house this size, landscaping, repairs. I've been paying this while you host garden parties and tell people you own the estate. Eleanor looked at the numbers. $15,000 a month? On average. Some months more with emergency repairs, like when the roof leaked last winter. That was $28,000. You remember. You called it rustic charm. Douglas had sat down heavily on one of my catered chairs. We thought the family trust. There is no family trust. There's me, working 70 hours a week running my firm, living modestly so I could help my sister, buying a distressed property as an investment, being generous when you needed a place to live, and getting repaid with garden party evictions because I embarrassed you. The guests were leaving now, quietly gathering their things, avoiding eye contact. The sophisticated garden party was dissolving into awkward silence. Melissa approached me. Aunt Diana, I didn't know. Mom said, she told us you were struggling, that we needed to help you by not making you feel bad about your situation. My situation? That you couldn't afford nice things, that we should be grateful for what we have and not make you feel worse by comparison. I looked at Eleanor. You told your daughters that? Eleanor couldn't meet my eyes. I'm not struggling, Melissa. I own this estate. I own my firm. I have 7 figures in investments. I live in a small apartment because I don't need space and don't want maintenance. I drive a Honda because it's reliable and I don't care about impressing people. Those are choices, not limitations. The catering staff was packing up. The quartet had left. The beautiful garden party was ending in disaster. 30 days, I said again. My lawyer will be in touch about the formal process. You can contest it if you want, but the deed is clear. The property is mine, and poor people aren't welcome here. I walked back to my practical Honda. In the rearview mirror, I could see Eleanor standing on the lawn, surrounded by the ruins of her garden party, playing Lady of the Manor on someone else's estate. Not anymore. I drove away from Thornwood, my 12-acre investment property, my $850,000 purchase, my restored gardens, repaired fountain, and treated oak trees. In 30 days, I'd return, not as the embarrassing poor sister, but as the owner. And Eleanor could find her own estate to host garden parties on. Preferably one she actually owned.